Yo, 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 yo! What's up, all you burners, stoners, and potheads? This is Weedman 420 with the Weedman 420 Chronicles. How are all you vipers doing out there? Mrs Weedman.
Mr. Weedman.
How the hell are you?
Cold.
It is fucking cold.
It's cold.
It's fucking cold.
It's like 13 below zero with the wind chill cold.
It's cold.
It's cold. But I'm good.
It was actually, the sun was out and it was beautiful.
It was a beautiful day.
Yeah, with the sun out. Like, it was hot, actually, in the car. The sun was beating down. I love that weather when it's like, because we've had no sun. Like,
right.
Literally no sun the last couple weeks. And this was like that good winter sun that beats down on you when it's like below 10 and that sun is hot, though. It's awesome.
But not hot enough to melt the snow. So we've got like maybe a couple inches of snow on the ground, and it's that kind of dry, crunchy snow that's like nails
frozen,
on a chalkboard.
Frozen snow.
You can't
it's the
shovel
worst.
it. It's just like
no, it's frozen
ice.
snow. It's the worst.
It's the worst.
It ain't going anywhere until we hit
it
53
looks pretty,
next
though.
week. So, hey, everybody out there in the world. Hopefully you're smoking some big fat doinks while you're listening to the show. And Mrs. Weedman and I are going to get baked. And we are smoking Oreos. So go ahead and light that joint up, Mrs.
Okay.
Weedman, while I tell everybody about this strain we be smoking tonight. So Oreos is a 70-30 indica dominant, 70 indica, 30 sativa. Oreos is an indica dominant hybrid strain, 70-30, created through crossing the delicious cookies and cream and secret weapon strains. Named for its super delicious flavor, Oreos is a great choice for any indica lover who's after a high level of potency and great taste, too. Like its name suggests, Oreos packs a taste that's almost like a cup of Oreo dirt pudding. With sweet yet spicy chocolate and delicious nuttiness. This aroma is very similar with a touch of pungent diesel to it, too.
Oh,
the Oreos.
pungent diesel.
Yeah, you got that right away?
Yeah. Whew.
The Oreos hits you almost as soon as you exhale, slamming into body and mind with long-lasting effects that will have you soaring for hours on end. The high begins with a boost of cerebral effects, filling your mind with uplifted sense of happiness and instantly washes away any negative racing thoughts.
Nice.
As your mind flies higher and higher and higher, your happiness expands. You'll be slammed with a heavy case of the munchies. Oh, great. And a light physical high that helps you relax while you snack. Mrs. Weedman's going to be in heaven in a minute. What time's the show end?
Not soon enough. I got to go eat.
Combined with the super high 20 to 33% average THC level, this full-bodied effects makes Oreos a great choice for treating those suffering from conditions such as appetite loss, nausea, depression, insomnia, chronic stress, gastrointestinal disorders. This bud has a dense and lumpy bright neon green nugs with deeper amber hairs and a coating of matching crystal trichomes dripping with sweet, sticky resin from top to bottom. Effects: calming, happy, hungry, relaxing, uplifting. We haven't smoked a hungry strain in a long time, by the way. Appetite loss. These are the symptoms it relieves. Appetite loss, depression, insomnia, nausea, and stress. Chocolatey flavors: diesel, nutty, peppery, spicy, and the aromas are chocolate, diesel, herbal, pepper, and spicy. You got the diesel right away, you said, right?
Diesel, peppery, spicy. You know,
Can
I have to
some?
say, well, 1 minute.
It smells fantastic.
I have to say, like, the pre-rolls, they pack them so tight when you buy pre-rolls. Some brands are better than others.
Because it's
but
weighed.
they're packed so tight
It's
that
weighed.
you can't even smoke it, though. I think I took about 5 hits off of that, but maybe got the equivalent of 1 hit.
Yeah, it's because it's weighed and it was a shorty.
Takes a long time
It was
to get it in
it was a shorty, so I mean it's weighed, so they got to give you the 0.5 grams because it's not a full gram, so they pack the fucking shit into it. Yes,
but it makes it challenging to smoke.
Oh yeah,
You can't get a.
you could loosen it by like kind of like
Yeah.
moving your fingers through it a little bit up and down. That'll help loosen it a little bit. So, but yeah, I think it tastes good. What do you think?
It is, yeah. Let's see how it works.
We'll see the happiness.
The happiness, we're just going to get happy automatically.
I want to watch you eat some fucking chips later, though, because you'll be monging in the bag.
You want to watch me? Why don't you eat your own chips?
Because it'll be past 9. It'll be past 9 o'clock. We're done recording, and I fast during the week.
Oh, so
remember?
then I can just get fat for you. You can live You can vicariously snack through me.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay,
That's how, I guess
that's
how,
fair. That's fair.
I guess that's how it goes.
Mr. Weedman has a very, very strong will to not snack.
True. During the week.
I do not. I'm like, fuck it.
So
Give me some more snacks. Where are they?
my
Where's the
fasting,
candy?
my fasting, I've been doing it for years. I don't even know how long I've been doing it now. Probably 5-6 years now I've been doing it. And yes, thank you. And you know, I enjoy it. You know, I stop eating at 9 o'clock at night and don't eat again until noon the next day. So I've been doing that for years, and then I have my.
But you do have a smoothie in the morning.
Yes, I do have a smoothie in the morning. Yes. So, yes, but I do have my morning smoothie just to get some vitamins and nutrients. So it's not a true 100% fast, but it is a 12-hour fast because I stop eating at 9 o'clock, and I don't eat again until I take my smoothie at 9 in the morning. So it is a 12-hour fast, and then I have my smoothie in the morning to replenish the nutrients I need, the herbs and minerals that I need to get me through the morning work, and then I don't eat again until 1 o'clock. So it's a somewhat of a fast, but it is a 12-hour fast Monday through Friday. Actually, Sunday night, 9 o'clock through Friday until noon, 1 o'clock, and then I fucking eat whatever fuck I want on the weekends. So that's why I enjoy it. So. But yeah, fasting's good. It actually does a lot of curing of the body too. It helps like fight any ailments you have, like because your body. What it does is it's digesting. When you eat food, your body has to work to digest that food, and it takes a lot to digest food. So everything that's going on with your body is now your stomach and all your muscles are trying to digest food. So if you're not eating food and you're sick and you have ailments, don't eat because your body needs to go heal that stuff. So, and it'll fight the toxins first when you fast. That's just, I'm being geeky, sorry. And I'm high. So, but we had a good weekend. What did we do this weekend, Mrs. Weedman?
It was a quiet weekend.
Yeah, but we took Yuki.
We went hiking with Yuki.
In the snow.
Yeah, and it was a snowstorm. It was great. The big fluffy snow. And where we went hiking with her, there was probably, 5 inches on the ground. And yeah, I would say probably 5 or 6 inches, right?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
She was running around like
She was
crazy.
having a good old
Oh
time.
my gosh, she was trying to catch the snowflakes. And you took a really beautiful picture in the air. I think you posted it of the snow coming down at you, but you were looking straight up at it. It was very pretty. Very pretty. Yeah, that went out. It's so tight.
It did.
Yeah, it doesn't get no airflow
That's
through
right.
it.
Maybe it's a sign that we should stop smoking.
How about you're going to be eating 2 bags of chips? And she had a blast, and it was awesome being out in her first really good snow and going through the forest and watching her run around and stuff like that. It was awesome. It was so amazing. And also, she's going to be 1.
She's going to be 1. Our baby's going to be 1
on
tomorrow.
February 1st. So awesome. 1 year old. We've had her for what? Since she was 7.5 weeks old?
Something like that.
Amazing. So to watch her grow up, and we post pictures of her all the time on the Chronicles Instagram. Love it. So happy birthday, Yuki.
Happy birthday, Yuki.
You ready to get the show underway?
Yeah.
Let's get it started.
Let's go.
Let's go. Delta 8, Delta 9, Delta 10, hemp-derived THC. What's the difference? And now I had somebody ask me about this again. So I did some more research, and I just figured I found this article again about all three, and coming from hemp. So there's that understanding that we've talked about many times on the show about hemp-derived cannabinoids versus cannabis plant-derived cannabinoids. So this is about the hemp plant. So you understand, especially because Shawty, the producer, was down in New Orleans having a great old time, and she sent us a text about how am I buying legal Delta 9 in New Orleans, and it's not legal here but medical. And I said, look at the package. What does it say? She goes, hemp-derived. I said, yes, hemp-derived THC. So this is going to hopefully help Shawty, too, the producer. Ever since Delta 8-TH rose to popularity, the product has unleashed a flood of questions about what it is, how it works, and how legal it is. To add to the confusion, more compounds similar in name but reportedly different in effect have graced the market in recent years, including Delta 10-THC and hemp-derived Delta 9. The result, looking at the shelves in most dispensaries, is becoming a whole lot like starting at a bowl of alphabet soup. To clear the air, we've put answers to your most basic questions on Delta 8, 9, and 10 THC in one place. So we'll make sure this is posted also. So we also tackled the words hemp-derived, meaning on the labeling, as these products of what users are reporting to be primary effects of each compound. And of course, we looked into which of all these products is the most potent. Here's the bottom line. Delta-9 THC is not hemp-derived, is the THC you probably already know and love. The one in traditional cannabis products that is associated with the typical cannabis high, because Delta-8, Delta-10 only exist in trace amounts in the cannabis plant. Delta-10 THC and Delta-8 THC products are usually made synthetically, meaning they are made in a lab. So several warnings have been released about synthetic cannabinoids. They are not subject to regulatory oversight. So several of these cases of false advertising have been discovered, and there's a higher chance of them containing heavy metals and other potentially harmful substances than there are in your typical run-of-the-mill THC or CBD products. Because of these concerns, Delta-8 and 10 products have been banned in certain states. Be sure to check the laws in your state and read up on the potential risks of synthetic cannabinoids before purchasing. Let's move on. Delta-8 THC is a cannabinoid that can be found in small amounts in the cannabis plant. When consumed, it can produce psychoactive effects, but the high you get from Delta-8 typically won't be quite as strong that you'd experience with typical Delta-9 cannabis products. As mentioned before, Delta-8 products are almost always produced synthetically. You won't find large quantities of Delta-8 THC in the cannabis plant, so most brands prefer to manufacture this type of THC in labs. They do this by turning certain cannabinoids into Delta-8 THC so it's easier to harvest in large batches. Because many people experience negative effects from the strong high that can result from a traditional Delta-9 THC, many users turn to Delta-8 for a less trippy experience. Because it is weaker form of THC, the high you get from Delta-8 is less likely to cause paranoia and extreme fatigue. For many people, this compound produces a sense of relaxation and nothing more. Delta-8 products are legal in most states. This is because they contain less than 0.3% THC, traditional Delta-9 THC that it is. But the fact that it can generate a high and the lack of knowledge and regulation on how these products are produced has made their legality hotly contested in many states and banned. Hemp-derived Delta-8. You may see hemp-derived written on many Delta-8 products. Delta-8 is more prevalent in the hemp plant than it is in traditional cannabis plant. So when you see Delta-8 products, they are usually hemp-derived. For this reason, there's a little difference in products you see on the shelves labeled as Delta-8 and hemp-derived Delta-8. Their legality and effects will typically be the same. It's also important to note that both Delta-8 products and hemp-derived Delta-8 products are typically synthetically produced. So the fact that hemp-derived is written on the label of one of the products does not necessarily mean it's more natural. Moving on to Delta-9 THC. Delta-9 is the form of THC most people are used to. It occurs in large quantities in the cannabis plant and can produce a psychoactive high when consumed. Delta-9 is capable of producing effects that are far stronger than usual effects of its cousin compounds 8 and 10. Many people prefer the stronger effects of Delta-9 for various reasons. Some claim that the effects make them more relaxed, increase their hunger, as Mrs. Weedman over there will be eating some chips later, and even improve their creativity. But this type of THC, as long as it's derived from the cannabis plant and not the hemp plant, is legal to possess, sell, or purchase in the U.S. unless you live in states where the recreational or medical market is legal. Let's read that one more time. But this type of THC, as long as it's derived from the cannabis plant and not the hemp plant, is illegal to possess or sell or purchase in the U.S. unless you live in a state where recreational medical cannabis is legal. Hemp-derived Delta-9. Here's the loophole everyone's been talking about recently. The hemp plant naturally produces a very low quantities of Delta-9 THC compared to the cannabis plant. For that reason, harvesting this type of THC from the hemp plant is very difficult. Even so, hemp-derived Delta-9 THC products have surfaced on the market over the past few years. These products are gaining traction in states where traditional cannabis products are illegal. Hemp-derived Delta-9 comes from something called the mother liquor, the liquid residual left over when lab workers extract CBD from the hemp plant.
Wow.
That make more sense now?
Yeah, I thought there was heat involved.
When we were in Florida and we saw hemp, we saw Delta 9 THC everywhere we went. Mm-hmm. You know, so that hopefully explains it a little bit better.
So it's not necessarily bad. I thought there was some sort of chemical extraction that had to be done.
Not with that.
No,
it's what's left over.
Interesting.
So, yes, so it is very interesting. But hopefully that helps you, because I know that was very confusing for Shoddy too, and for you. And it's also been a little confusing for everybody, even me, at times.
Is it necessarily dangerous then?
No, not at all.
It's not chemical. It comes from the hemp plant.
Right. It's not dangerous
at
all. It's natural.
Just pressed out like a resin.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's flour.
Right.
Some of it, isn't it?
It's all flour.
Okay.
And it's pressed to get the CBD liquid out, but then what's left over is the residual of Delta 9 THC, which we find in the plant that we're smoking right now, but there's little trace amounts, so you build it up, and then you can actually put it into plants.
But you can
put it in edibles.
So you can't buy bud. You can't buy Delta 8 bud.
Well, you know, there's sprays where I see people spraying it on CBD bud, but there is trace amounts in there. Not enough to say like this is a full Delta 8 bud. It has to be probably genetically modified to grow a plant like that, or someone grows a strain specifically for Delta 8. That's all that plant's really containing in it, or bigger amounts of it, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
So, without getting too in the weeds on this, the U.S. Farm Bill legalized hemp products containing 0.3% THC, measured on the dry weight basis. This mother liquor makes it easy to inject exactly the limit of THC into any edible cannabis product while still being able to say it comes from hemp. So a 2-gram brownie could contain as much as 6 milligrams of hemp-derived Delta 9 THC and still technically be legal. The mother liquor.
Mother liquor.
Yes. There's a lot of debate online over whether hemp-derived Delta 9 is less potent than traditional THC. While some people say they generate the same effects, others experience a milder high from hemp-derived Delta 9 THC products. We may soon see more widespread crackdowns on hemp-derived Delta 9 products, but for now it's available in most states. 10, Delta 10 THC. Of all the compounds listed here, 10 is the one about which is the least is known. One thing we do know is 10 THC is quite similar to Delta 8 THC in a variety of ways. They're both synthetic cannabinoids for starters. The cannabis plant does not naturally produce large amounts of this compound, so most Delta 10 is made artificially. Delta 10 THC is also quite weak compared to 9 in terms of potency, and is generally even weaker than 8. This compound can still produce psychoactive effects, but its effects are relatively minor. Some find that the cannabinoid can be helpful in relieving stress and promoting relaxation. Hemp-derived Delta 10, like with 8, almost all Delta 10 products will be hemp-derived, whether they say so on the label or not. But unlike 8, you won't find many states that have banned the use of Delta 10 because it's less widely talked about and so little is known about it. For that reason, you could find this type of THC being sold in many states across the country without legal issues. When it comes to 8, 9, and 10, Delta, and their hemp-derived cousins, the main thing you need to know is that Delta 9 THC is what most people associate with traditional cannabis high. Hemp-derived THC is a loophole to the U.S. Farm Bill that is quickly growing in popularity, and Delta 8 and 10 are compounds usually derived from hemp. According to many users, tend to generate a milder high that you can expect from normal cannabis products. Additionally, 8 and 10 products are usually synthetic, while 9 can be found in large quantities in the cannabis plant. So hopefully this kind of helps. But at this point, we hope you have a better understanding of the deltas and what's right for you. And now, like we've always said, experiment, start low and go slow. Ask your dispensary people. Do your research, please, on this. So make sure it's right for you. Okay? Did that help? I mean, I think it did, because there's so many times people ask, and it's like it's very hard to explain if people don't understand it.
Yeah, and it helps. I don't understand why anybody in their right mind would use it in a state that's legal. Just buy cannabis. Buy cannabis from the cannabis plant.
Some people feel still weird about it.
I know, and I think that it goes back to the stigmas.
Stigmatized.
And something about it coming from CBD makes it seem safe. I'm going to be covering an article about the lack of regulation and standards of processing for safety in the cannabis space. But we do know that there's a lack of standards in how they inspect quality control for product,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess considering that even the legal space doesn't have great practices in place, what about the non-legal? Like, I guess my concern is you just don't know what you're getting. Most of those products are being sold at, head shops and gas stations, the Delta 8 stuff.
8, 10,
and 10.
CBD. Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's being sold traditional market, but probably not even.
No.
Not. It's
Some
just,
people might get it
I
and
guess
sell it, but
the concern is just what else could be in there.
heavy metals.
Right.
Stuff that can
just,
fuck your lungs up.
Totally. Yeah.
So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, this is something interesting. When I read this article and I sent it over to you, that it's like to choose between medical and recreational cannabis, right? I mean, it's a very good article. I really like this topic. I'm going to let you take over on this one. But yeah, so just difference between medical and recreational cannabis and which one to choose.
And okay, so just to kind of preface this, in medically legal states, or really in medically and recreational, so states that are rec obviously also have medical. It used to be, and it may still be that way in some of the states that are legal, on the medical side of the store, those people, the patients, got priority in sales. So if brand X brings in their supply for the week and medical patient and recreational patient are in line and they both want the same product, the medical patient would get priority because they're there they need it. It's their medicine.
Yep.
And so on top of that, there used to be higher THC products were allowed for the medical dispensaries than were for for recreational.
And I know for sure in some states edible wise, if you have a medical card like Michigan,
you can buy
200
dose.
milligram edibles instead of only the 100 milligram with recreational.
Right.
So that in some states is
and in some states
Illinois.
there would be different products. There might be different manufacturers. Certain manufacturers only make medical grade stuff. Anyway, there used to be pretty big differences between the rec stuff and the medical stuff. Now, if you're in a state that's medical and rec, you could have a dispensary that has a medical side and a recreational side. They're selling the same thing. I think the priority still is for priority is still for the medical patients if it's a medical and recreational dispensary.
Yes.
But if it's a rec dispensary, you get whatever's there, and if it's a medical and recreational, you're both buying the same things. So that's the preface to this article, the difference between medical and recreational cannabis and which to choose. So in some states, you get to choose. The recreationally legal states, you might be able to choose. So while certainly a good way to relax for as long as humans have used it, cannabis also has been a wellness tool. From seeds discovered in ancient China to salves in ancient Egypt and spiritual smoothies in ancient India, the list is as curious as it is comprehensive, especially considering our modern outlook on the plant. Today, cannabis is either sold on the black market or hyper-regulated market. And no matter why you use it, it's harder to get than other substances humans love. So, as of 2023, 37 states permitted medical cannabis sales, while 21 states allow adult use, also known as recreational cannabis. In those 21 states, both medical and recreational options are available. With this selection of purchase possibilities, which one is right for you? Why bother getting a medical card in a state where you can just hit up a recreational dispensary? It depends on how you use cannabis, but consider this. Even if you reach for an edible to help you sleep or a topical for post-workout soreness, you're using the plant for a presumed medical purpose. Just because you can freely buy the products to serve those needs doesn't negate the fact. If you're soothing something that ails you, whether mental or physical, consider reframing your indulgent as a medical or wellness aid. Obtaining a medical cannabis card can be beneficial for a few reasons, the first of which is access. Many states without adult use permit medical cards for a long list of less serious conditions. Another less obvious perk? Sticking it to the man, sort of. Government-funded cannabis research is limited, making it difficult for the plant to be fully accepted in the mainstream. If you want to know precisely why it helps you sleep soundly, participating in the patient care program helps give states and eventually the feds a better picture of actual use. Having a true count, one that stands in contrast with years of discrete use, could help influence cannabis policy too. One less visible benefit is that medical cannabis cards and programs can help older users who grew up alongside severe stigmas against the drug consider weed as a legitimate treatment for their issues. While getting a medical card involves additional steps versus purchasing in a recreational shop, there are inherent benefits to going the medical route, including increased access in states where you don't live. Some states, like Hawaii, provide what's called reciprocity.
Michigan does.
Yep. Where your medical card from state X is fair game in state Y. A bonus for people who need the consistent and reliable access that medical outlets can provide. Some states don't have separate shops for different types of buyers anymore, including California, which reformed its program in 2016 after decades of medical sales. But medical buyers are still treated differently, at least at the checkout. Today in California, retail adult use shops serve medical patients with the same products as recreational buyers, but certain city and state taxes are waived. These costs can be significant, and for regular medical users, the savings are worth the fees and extra steps. In New Jersey, cardholders can skip the line at the dispensary and select from a guaranteed stock and use a dedicated checkout, while adult use folks have to wait and pray that the products that they want don't sell out. Similar rules exist around possession in states like Oregon,
You got it.
where medical card holders can have more cannabis or have permission to even grow their own. Establishing
It's like that here in Illinois with a medical patient gets more cannabis they can hold.
Can carry.
Yeah, you can
at
buy
any
versus
time.
a rec, but you're still basically getting a lot of the same weed. But
And even myself as a caregiver, we can carry up to 2.5 ounces.
every 2 weeks it resets.
Yeah. And if you're just a rec, if you don't carry a medical card, I think it's 1 ounce, isn't it?
Yeah.
Possession, something
Yeah.
like that. So establishing yourself as a registered patient right now could help you down the road if healthcare programs begin to consider cannabis as a legitimate treatment. Perhaps one day it'll even be eligible for discounts, coverage, could you imagine? Or even flex spending accounts. With a legitimate medical need, with the definition of legitimate varying from state to state, it's generally not hard to get the documentation sorted to obtain a medical use card. Many states require only a doctor's note rather than a state or county issued physical card. Laws and regulations certainly differ from state to state. While New York might check in with you via email if you're missing paperwork, some counties in California will consider any missing detail an automatic denial. That's where online medical use card services come in. They can get you what you want. They can get you what you need to get a card, provided you qualify and the doctor they set you up with agrees that cannabis would be a good treatment option. Sites like NugMD and VeraHeal and others can connect you with doctors who have experience with cannabis patients if your own doctor doesn't feel comfortable prescribing it. But when working with a site like one of these, it's important to remember that the company generally can't communicate with the state on your behalf. So you typically have to be the one who forwards the paperwork, your ID, proof of residency, and any other information you need from your state or county agency to get final approval and obtain your physical card. I will tell you right here, I've had people connect with me like, how do you get your medical card? How do you do this? I've got a friend, I've got an aunt, I've got a this, I've got a that. And it's really not that big of a process. I think the biggest hang up is people not feeling comfortable, especially an older generation, not feeling comfortable talking to their doctor who they've gone to for years and years and feeling like their doctor might judge them for it or be mad or disappointed or whatever. So they don't want to talk to their doctor, and they don't know. So then they don't know where to go. So getting that doctor's recommendation or approval, I think, is the hardest, maybe the hardest, most challenging mentally to get over. It's not necessarily hard to find a doctor who will do it, but these services kind of help you through that. So people
Right.
that I've addressed it with, I've given them this recommendation as well, because I think they just feel comfortable going that route where someone just kind of tells them what to do.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, you still have to do a little work. In getting a medical card, is it worth it if you only would use it occasionally? Well, really, it's your call. If you're happy, keep doing what you're doing. But if your consumption increases for any medical reason like pain, sleep, or anxiety, consider signing up. If you have an eligible condition and just want the option, or perhaps hope to be able to shop in other states, it's worth it to get the process started. Another important bit of info: if you buy cannabis for another person who uses it medically, you can get a caretaker card to help serve their needs better, so they don't have to go to the store at all. So there are a lot of options to explore.
Yeah, a lot. Thanks for being my caretaker, Mrs. Weedman.
No problem.
What does the future of retail cannabis packaging look like? And I was talking to some bud tenders, and I said, what do you like about the cannabis industry and what you don't like about the cannabis industry? And the one thing the bud tenders I were talking to about said, we do not like all the waste and all the plastic packaging. So I went and did some research on a couple articles and found this one I thought was good. What does the future look like? Got to wear shades, right? It's that bright. For distributors and retailers, cannabis packaging can be a headache. There are myriad compliance issues to contend with, including labeling and tracking, and logistical challenges such as shipping units from other countries during the time of COVID, related supply chain chaos. Packaging must also be child resistant, yet easy enough for patients with physical ailments such as arthritis to open. Cannabis is well documented and infectious anti-seizure medication, and patients experience seizures need to have it immediately, and easy access to their flower or concentrate. An industry secret that average medical cannabis patients may not be aware of its traditional packaging, such as mylar bags or plastic containers, let oxygen in and light into the product, resulting in a loss of flower and net weight. Okay, here. You know oxygen is the biggest degrader of any kind of product and anything. It will degrade stuff so fast. Once like food or weed or whatever oxygen gets into there, it will degrade that shit real quick. So airtight jars are great. So also light, sunlight, those UV lights, they will fucking destroy product. And also don't forget, all cultivators weigh their weight. That's how they charge, by weight. So retailers often have an insert additional flower into package to meet the standards of compliance, regulations, and customers. Packaging to the rescue is addressing, that's not the name of the company, but I'm not giving them a plug. So is addressing some of these obstacles that retailers experience every day. They use a proprietary technology that injects nitrogen into this packaging. This process preserves the balance of moisture and weight of the product while removing the ambient oxygen and moisture that is in the container. You are sealing it hermetically. The native moisture that exists in the product sits, and it can, said the CEO. So one of these biggest challenges for cannabis industry is once you open the package, if there's any presence of oxygen at all, it begins to degrade the product. The CEO also says pull tabs and child-resistant, senior-friendly lid apparatuses that combine compliance with accessibility. Most of the patents that this company holds is looking around and locking mechanisms to make the lids a little bit easier, which is kind of cool. What are they responsible for building a better mousetrap? This CEO says, for us, making it difficult for small hands or young hands or unsophisticated hands to be able to put pressure points on the lids in the right places, and the twist and alignment moment that are needed has been the core technology of this company and the safest option, so they say. Many industries have to play catch-up when it comes to sustainability. The cannabis industry, however, has largely been a leader in the field. So they're engaged in groups to figure out the best, easiest way to get these cannabis bottles and jars and Mylar bags open for people. They're interviewing people like crazy, doing a lot of tests and trying to figure out regulations. So that's kind of cool. It is a big problem, all the waste. So what's next for the cannabis packaging? Nitrogen-infused components this company is going to do, like the cans, but will give the company a broader widespan offering for customers. We want to have a broader option for those of our customers who have what I describe as multiple lines and multiple brand personas they want to put forward, this CEO says. The next generation after that will focus development equipment that will allow for nitrogen infusing in Mylar bags and glass jars. So right now they're starting in cans and then going to Mylar bags and jars. So that's kind of cool. So good. Hopefully they can stop the waste. So,
yes.
Thanks for being my caregiver once again. What does it mean? See, Mr. Weedman hooks you up, follows you up with med and rec, and then right into being a caregiver.
Right into a caregiver.
Man. So tell me what it's like to be my caregiver.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty easy.
That's a project. Do you have a few hours? Well,
we're not talking about cannabis right now, are we, Mrs. Weedman?
Overall care. Well, what does it mean to be a medical marijuana or cannabis caregiver? A caregiver is someone who provides support to another individual who is unable to care for themselves. In the context of medical marijuana, caregivers are responsible for providing support to patients who use cannabis as treatment. Becoming a caregiver for medical marijuana patients is a great way to help others and be part of the cannabis community. A medical marijuana caregiver is someone who is authorized to provide cannabis to a med patient for medical purposes. Most states now allow caregivers to be used in their established medical marijuana programs, although they have varying definitions of what a caregiver is. Both the patient and the caregiver are shielded from state criminal punishment in these states by statute, assuming that all parties are acting in compliance with the law. Caregivers assist individuals who are unable to obtain marijuana on their own, such as minors who are unable to enter a dispensary or those who are too ill to leave their home. Patients usually choose their own caregivers to look after their requirements. This might be a parent, guardian, nurse, spouse, or other suitable close relative. A parent or legal representative must be the patient's caregiver if the patient is under 18. So is a caregiver necessary, really? Well, a caregiver is strongly encouraged for individuals whose illness makes medical marijuana difficult to obtain or consume. People who struggle with fine motor skills or who need help moving around are usually urged to choose a caregiver. And, as we said, patients under the age of 18. What are the responsibilities? Well, although this will vary greatly from state to state, registered medical marijuana caregivers have several common responsibilities. They help patients administer or take their medical marijuana, so smoke a joint with them. It also involves preparing.
I enjoy smoking with my caregiver.
Yeah, right? It involves preparing the medication for the patient and distributing it to them. Here, Mr. Weedman, you need some more.
Thanks.
There you go. Any method of preparing cannabis for the patient might be included, like making tinctures, edibles, capsules, or preparing flower to smoke. The patient normally only has one or two caregivers, and the caregiver may have multiple patients. To be registered and recognized, the caregiver must submit a formal application to their state, and every state has a different application procedure and set of requirements. Cannabis must be lawfully accessible to caregivers. They may either produce their own or buy it directly, depending on state laws. Then the amount they have to comply with the state, like we knew how much we can carry at any time.
Right.
And that varies from state to state. If the state has set up a growing program and the qualified patient has been given permission to cultivate for personal use, then the caregiver can grow for that person. In Illinois, a medical patient can have at any given time, you can have up to 5 plants over 12 inches. So you could have a little seedling, like when you're in your last couple weeks of growing, you could have a small plant that's ready and growing. And so you can constantly be in a rotation of growing and harvesting your own weed at home. So 5 plants in the state of Illinois for medical patient only. Michigan, on the other hand, has a caregiver program. So like this is saying, I could be a caregiver for multiple people, and those people can give me their plants, per se, their ability to grow plants. So each of those patients can have 12 plants. So if I have 5 patients and I'm growing 12 plants for them, which would be an insane amount of cannabis that probably 12 or those patients couldn't consume in any given time. Anyway, I decide, am I going to grow all 12 plants at a time? Am I going to grow 2 for this person and 3 for that person and 5 for that person? Whatever. I'm the caregiver. I'm growing it, and I'm growing it for my patients. So now I'm going to distribute it to them. I'm going to bring it to them, or I'm going to make edibles and deliver the edibles to them. So that's a really cool program.
Great program.
And I believe you can earn income off of it in the state of Michigan also. You gotta
get a license.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, if you're licensed.
Yeah.
Okay. Not as just a caregiver.
No, if you're just a home grower, you get 12 plants. But if you become a caregiver, you have to get a license for that.
Okay. So anyway, check your state laws. There's a lot of.
I think Illinois needs to do that too.
Yeah, that would be great. If a patient is too unwell or otherwise unable, a caretaker can provide transportation, or they could actually go and purchase the cannabis and bring it to the patient's home. There are restrictions on what caregivers can do to their patients. The cannabis belonging to a patient cannot be sold or distributed by the caregiver to anybody else. Cannabis cannot be grown by caregivers for anybody other than their specified recipients. No cannabis or marijuana-related products belonging to cannabis patients may be consumed by cannabis caregivers. I didn't know that. I thought that I had the right to... I thought that I think the Illinois paper said something to that effect. If I'm a caregiver. I have to look at that. Anyway, unless they possess their own medical card or reside in a state that okay, because we're a rec state. But I thought there was something within the medical caregiver card description that allowed me to consume.
Yes.
Right?
I remember we read that.
Yeah, there was something.
Yeah, or we called and asked.
Yeah.
And they said...
Yeah.
They kind of gave you like, well...
Because you might have to check on your patient's medication to make sure it's fresh.
Right. True.
Yeah. Well, a caregiver often has to be both a state resident and a citizen of the United States. A few states will let caregivers be as young as 18, but most require you to be 21. Most states prohibit the medical marijuana caregiver from also being the patient's physician. And caregivers need to sign up with the state medical marijuana registry. They'll receive a card, and as a result of this registration, they can use it at the dispensary on behalf of their patient. So in most states, a person can have a medical marijuana license for their own personal use while also serving as an authorized caregiver for another patient. A caregiver may only use medical marijuana in this specific situation. Choosing a designated caregiver entails picking a trustworthy individual. Being a good caregiver is important because you are responsible for administering regulated medication to someone who cannot access it on their own. You will have a direct impact on their health and well-being, so it isn't a role to take lightly. Here is what you can do to ensure that you're providing the best possible care for your patients. 1. Educate yourself on cannabis basics and administration techniques. 2. Understand the laws of your state. 3. Always think about what's best for your patient. And 4. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, and 5. Stop stealing my weed,
yeah.
Mrs. Weedman.
In order to provide the best care for someone you're responsible for, you must first take care of yourself, Mr. Weedman. When you're happy and healthy, you'll be able to provide the greatest care for those you're responsible for. Give me all your weed.
Georgia voters want cannabis legalized, and that was a big poll. About 53% of Georgians surveyed said cannabis should be legal for adults. A high point poll from AJC. So that's pretty good. Oh yeah, I'll smoke some more of that. That's pretty good. Let's see what else. New Hampshire governor dismisses legalization bill chances. Good for you, governor. Gosh, man, what's wrong with you? Senators take bipartisan action to legalize medical cannabis in North Carolina. Bipartisan. They came across the aisle and shook some hands and maybe passed a joint around. Man, that's a good fucking weed.
Mm-hmm.
FDA says CBD still can't be dietary supplement. Okay. Just fucking so weird. Here's something crazy. $60 ounces have arrived in California.
Wow. An ounce for
ounce
$60.
in Cali.
And it's probably good.
Yeah, it's probably fucking fantastic. But they just can't get rid of it because they got so much. So, so stores, like someone said they've seen in this article, someone said they've seen it as low as 23. Like people just trying to give it away. Oh, that's a gram. So, like $18. There was like at one point it was a gram, and now you're talking $60 ounces. It's fucking nuts. Nuts.
And it is.
Crazy. Pressure builds for Texas lawmakers to expand medical cannabis and weigh decriminalization. Texas legislature created a state's medical cannabis policy. The Compassionate Use Program, CUP, nearly 8 years ago, remains one of the most restricted in the United States. So very few ailments. I think 43,000 patients were enrolled in the program as of December, according to the data of Department of Public Health. That's it. Come on, Texas. Jeez. I posted this article before I introduced Mrs. Weedman on this article. I'm going to pass the joint back over to her. I posted this article, and it gave me chills, and it made me another big win for cannabis here. So, I'm going to read the title. My Case for Cannabis. How it healed and developed my young son's brain. Got chills with that one.
Yeah, this is a big article. This is written by a doctor. Her name is Annabelle Manalo Morgan. And she had a sick son and turned to cannabis. Very, very cool. The safety and effectiveness of cannabis as medicine to deal with, this is written by her, to deal with medical conditions remains a hot debate subject. Research into the benefits and risks of cannabis use has been limited, leaving many doctors with more questions than answers. But let me tell you my story about how cannabis is changing my young son's life. 2 days after my son, Macario, was born in 2016, he began having seizures. Over the next few weeks, those seizures would begin to occur up to 200 times a day. Those weeks were made up of moments that every parent dreads. Every drug regimen was attempted before we realized that the seizures would not stop and could soon take over the rest of his brain. A pediatric neurosurgeon suggested removing the entire left hemisphere of Macario's brain, determining that was the only way to give him a chance at life without seizures. But that option would mean Macario would face significant developmental challenges. Hoping to give him the best chance of some quality of life, I opted for 38% removal of the left side of his brain, and he underwent 9 hours of brain surgery at the age of 28 days old. My husband and I were told Macario would never use the right side of his body and that he would be mentally challenged. We understood that Macario would likely never speak normally, would have limited movement, and was looking at a future defined by challenges none of us could fully predict. He was on so many different prescriptions that he was nearly unresponsive. Strangers would tell me he behaved so well, like an angel. They didn't realize the reason he wasn't crying and fussing was because he was continually under the fog of medication. After his surgery, I did what any mother would do. I desperately searched for any possible remedy or cure or aid that could help in Macario's recovery and give him a better chance at life. I'm a cell and developmental biologist, and doing deep research is a big part of my job. And because I am a scientist by trade, I translated my desperation into invention. So many innovations are born from a time of need, underpinned by a similar desperation of live or death drive. And what I did in my lab for my son is no different. I knew the medications that he was prescribed post-surgery were keeping any further seizures from occurring, but I also knew that they were contributing to his development. They acted more like a Band-Aid, which is good, but I was thinking about his development long term. In investigating the options to help Macario's development, I read claims that cannabidiol, or CBD, one of hundreds of chemical compounds found in the cannabis plant, had therapeutic benefits for numerous conditions, including epilepsy. I knew there was going to be use for my clinical trial certification, and what better time to put it to use than to experimentally analyze some of the CBD products on the market. Based on my research, I understood that an isolated form of CBD had a unique ability to naturally interact with the receptors of an individual's endocannabinoid system to bring about homeostasis and internal repair within the body. I hypothesized that using CBD to trigger Macario's endocannabinoid system into action would encourage his brain and nervous system to repair on its own and give him a chance to develop by accentuating the processes that would otherwise naturally occur. In the summer of 2016, I developed the purest and most consistent form of CBD oil that my scientific expertise would allow, with no other cannabinoids or fillers. I took my son off of his heavy drug regimen and began administering my creation directly through the feeding tube protruding from his little belly. The results were nearly immediate. Macario soon began to express emotion and had the energy for normal movements. He was walking by the age of 14 months. At the age of 3, he had nearly caught up to his peers in preschool. He could walk and run, giggle and play, and speak in broken, fluttery English that defines toddlerhood. Now, at 7 years old, Macario is writing, spelling, and enrolled in regular classes at school. He hasn't taken his anti-seizure medication since I took him off of it in 2016. I literally have the goosebumps.
Amazing.
Despite any inundation of the CBD in the market, most individuals still don't understand what cannabis, and in particular cannabidiol and other molecules of the plant, can do for our health. And that includes individuals in the scientific community of which I am part. The industry is booming, and there's money flowing in seemingly every direction outside of the lab itself. We understand the potency of cannabis as a recreational drug, but we are only on the cusp of truly understanding its medicinal powers. It's time to cast off the taboo of weed culture and approach this plant with the level of scientific rigor it deserves. Through my work developing pure cannabidiol oil in the lab during my son's time of need in 2016, I saw the huge medical potential of cannabis firsthand. And in my work since, discussing my cannabis discoveries with dozens of in-need individuals and groups around the world, I've also seen firsthand that there are countless sick individuals who don't know what they should try. We need to get this conversation started. Macario's miraculous story isn't just about the medicinal powers of cannabis. It's a testament to what we have the power to achieve once we look beyond the limits of what's possible. Weed.
Another win. Mm-hmm. Another win. Mm-hmm. International news. How did Israel go from hating cannabis to embracing it? It's crazy. I mean, follow the godfather, the grandfather, the father of THC, Dr. Michellam. You know, how would you even hate it? He's been figuring it out since the 60s. So, Israelis, though, regularly inhale the most weed per capita anywhere on Earth.
Really?
Crazy. Money. They're united on it. They love it. Here's something I didn't know either. I know it's decriminalized, but people are just smoking in the streets regular because it's decriminalized, and people just fucking whip out a joint, smoke in the streets. It's awesome. Good for you, Israel. Keep on going. First ever medicinal cannabis production plant opens in Greece. This thing is massive, huge, and they're super stoked that they're going to get investors and more, and they're going to make this a big cash industry for Greece, so pretty good. Argentina launches new agency to boost cannabis industry. And actually, too, I heard they're going to become one of the biggest exporters, too. They're a driving force right now. And they got great soil down there for cannabis. So, good for Argentina. All right. We talked about this a while back ago. I don't remember what episode, but this was the trimmer that passed away due to breathing in the keef and stuff like that.
It was a year ago.
A year ago. So, Mrs. Weedman, this is a pretty big article. This is part 2 of the tragic death from health hazards working in the cannabis industry.
Yes. So, death of a trimmer, part 2. So, we're talking about the same person, just to further dive into what's going on in the industry. A tragic death raises questions about health hazards in the cannabis industry. Lorna McMurray's death begs the question, what dangers are cannabis workers facing and who's looking out for their health? The January 7th, 2022 death of True Leave employee Lorna McMurray. Oh boy, maybe I shouldn't have hit that again. I'm sorry. This is a kind of a serious topic. The January 7th, 2022 death of True Leave employee Lorna McMurray in Holyoke, Massachusetts, marked one of the first known work-related fatalities in the legal cannabis industry. Leafly is marking the 1-year anniversary of her passing with Death of a Trimmer, an investigative series that raises troubling questions about worker safety in the legal cannabis industry. Part 1 chronicled Lorna's life, tragic death, and the aftermath of the incident. Part 2 examines the emerging hazards of cannabis work and the urgent need for safety measures in an industry still in its infancy. For a few members of the cannabis industry, the deadly asthma attack Lorna McMurray suffered in a cannabis processing facility in January of 2022 wasn't shocking at all. In some ways, they had been expecting it. But a handful of the industry's most experienced cannabis growers knew inhaling cannabis dust wasn't healthy, and they knew that it had the potential to shut down a person's airways. They've tried to share that information, but few were interested in hearing or acting on it. Theo Lewis is one of these people. Lewis is the founder and CEO of Ted's Buds, one of Southern California's leading distributors of boutique indoor flower. He's old school, having earned his stripes in the legacy market before transitioning into today's state-licensed industry. When Lewis started his cannabis growing operation years ago, he worked without gloves and interacted closely with the flower, putting his face directly into the plants, breathing it in. Then something happened. About 4 months into the cultivation cycle, Lewis developed a serious, severe allergic response that initially took the form of hives that covered his body. After a while, he told me, I couldn't even be in the house with all the plants. It would clog up my lungs and clog up my throat, and I really couldn't breathe. I had to go to the hospital.
I know one person personally who's allergic to touching the cannabis plant.
No, this is not allergies. This is just the dust that the plants create causes these conditions.
Stuff. Got it. Okay.
So this is not allergy. I mean, he had an allergic reaction.
Right. But
maybe because of the quantity or the intensity of the environment.
Okay.
But they're talking about just the effects of being around that dust. Right. So over the years, the situation developed to the point where Lewis couldn't even visit cultivation sites anymore. Just because I knew after a while it would affect me, he said. Tom Lauerman knows plenty about cannabis and employee safety. Farmer Tom, as he's known in the industry, has operated a cannabis business for almost 50 years, going back decades before legalization. For the past 7 years, he's worked on cannabis workplace safety issues with officials from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the state of Washington and other government agencies. We've started seeing the effects of these large commercial-scale processing operations, Lauerman told me. I've been to a lot of operations that do pre-rolls, and pre-rolls are the worst. If you're stuck in a room there for 7-8 hours a day, bad things are going to happen. Lauerman, who is based near his Washington-Oregon border home, has hosted a number of scientists and federal officials over the years, allowing them to learn, touch, and study the plants. In 2015, he invited a team from the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, NIOSH is the acronym, to use his cannabis farm as a testing lab. Over 3 days, they developed safety protocols from harvesting, bucking, trimming, and prepping flower. That information is posted on Lauerman's website, farmertomorganics.com. It's actually a very informative website. He's got a lot of knowledge. Lorna McMurray's death made it clear that occupational asthma caused by airborne particles of cannabis is it's a risk potentially faced by thousands of workers just like her. But there's another potential hazard that's more insidious and long-lasting, one that's more commonly associated with workers from a bygone era. In a study published in January 2022, ironically, in the medical journal Allergy, British allergy and immunology researchers noted that prolonged occupational exposure to hemp dust results in respiratory irritation, airflow obstruction, and inflammation called biocinosis. Biocinosis is an occupational lung disease caused by inhaling dust from cotton, hemp, and other plant fibers. It's more commonly known as brown lung disease, an affliction suffered in the past by many cotton textile workers in the American South. Biocinosis is a narrowing of the airways that's thought to be triggered by a bacterial toxin in raw plant matter that's inhaled as dust. Airborne particulates in the workplace can exacerbate an existing asthmatic condition or induce asthma in a person who hasn't previously had the condition. A study from 1968 found lung problems in hemp factory workers, and because cannabis has been illegal for so long, little research has been done on the health effects of commercial-scale production. In 1968, scientists in Yugoslavia studied 106 workers in a factory that processed hemp, the same cannabis sativa plant that today's workers handle every day. In one department, 41% of the workers had biocinosis, and 15% had chronic bronchitis. There is no doubt that the dust of cannabis sativa hemp can cause biocinosis, and at least temporarily impairment of ventilatory function, the researchers wrote. In 2017, Washington State's Department of Labor and Industries issued a cautionary guidance for cannabis workers, noting that industrial-scale cultivation has highlighted a connection between plant dust inhalation and a risk for work-related breathing problems. So that's just it's a note. It's not even being quantified as a risk. In 2020 and 2021, the same agency also conducted studies that found cannabis employees have experienced asthma attacks and related symptoms while taking on a variety of on-the-job tasks, including measuring, packaging, weighing, and trimming flour. The information rarely moved from Washington to the other 20 states that have legalized marijuana. Like, why wouldn't you want to share that knowledge and fix it? Jeez Louise. Fix it. Julia Agron, a cannabis educator and former program coordinator for the Cannabis Education Center at Holyoke Community College in Massachusetts, compared the situation to the early days of other industries. In the world of worker safety, NIOSH and OSHA kind of play good cop, bad cop. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is the Department of Labor agency that conducts inspections and levies fines. NIOSH, which operates under the Center for Disease Control, acts as a sort of agricultural extension office, offering advice to companies in order to keep their workers safe and prevent any trouble with OSHA. The preliminary standards established at Farmer Tom's Grow were published in a 2017 report. NIOSH passes the report on to new states when they legalize, but only if the state seeks them out, Lauerman told me. They used my standard operating practices as the foundation for workplace health and safety standards, he said. The work's in the Library of Congress because it was a federally sponsored study. But you have to ask for it. And if you don't know it's there, you're not going to ask for it.
I like Farmer Tom, though.
I know.
His website's awesome.
What people mostly seemed concerned about in the industry's early days was product safety for consumers, not on-the-job safety for workers. The well-being of the people creating the product was largely an afterthought. James Couch, branch chief of the Hazard Evaluations and Technical Assistance Program at NIOSH, called Lauerman a great ally in the effort to keep cannabis workers safe. Since 2015, Couch and his colleagues have conducted health hazard evaluations at a number of state-licensed cannabis growing and processing facilities. These evaluations can be requested by a group of 3 or more employees, a union, or the business itself. Over the past 5 years, the agency has published 3 reports identifying the hazards of cannabis growing, harvesting, and processing, and protocols to protect worker health. The frustrating thing is that almost nobody in the cannabis industry knows these reports exist. I only discovered them after months of research into cannabis worker safety because NIOSH's James Couch mentioned them in an offhand comment during our interview. In conjunction with this series, Leafly has published a resource guide to cannabis worker safety that includes links to these reports. One of the challenges of regulating employee safety in a newborn industry is the basic lack of knowledge about working conditions. Because research doesn't yet exist, many regulators simply don't know what hazards exist and what they should be looking for. Worker safety regulations usually start with the federal government. The U.S. Labor Department's OSHA can investigate any workplace under its general duty clause, but because the federal government still lists marijuana as a Schedule I drug, OSHA has never set out specific standards for licensed cannabis facilities. Julia Agron told Leafly that Massachusetts' guidelines remain far too vague. The state's regulation require that businesses meet basic worker safety standards, but they're often not explicit about how to accomplish that. When companies apply for state cannabis licenses, they must submit standard operating procedures, including safety provisions. State regulators really need to jump in and set the foundation, said Tom Lauerman, so that the workers are safe, especially with this high turnover and every kid in the world who wants to be in the industry, and they'll work for next to nothing to get their foot in the door, and companies take advantage of all these things. Each state really needs to care about the workers because the corporations don't. The way Aiden Coffey, who is the organizing director for United Food and Commercial Workers Local 1445, sees it, if state regulators can't protect cannabis workers, maybe unions can. The UFCW is now pushing to organize True Leaves workers in Holyoke and the company's 3 other Massachusetts locations. Coffey said that McMurray's incident has clearly motivated True Leaves employees. Big picture safety worries extend far beyond one company, Coffey added. The problem at Holyoke facility are in no way unique to True Leave in Massachusetts, he told Leafly. Worker safety, especially in the grow space, is an industry-wide problem. Coffey said he believes the industry needs to take 3 steps in the wake of McMurray's death. Workers need to be free to organize, more safety regulations need to be put in place, and the Cannabis Control Commission and similar statewide agencies need to be beefed up. There is work to be done on worker safety across the country in cannabis, he said. The government wants to make a ton of money, Tom Lauerman said, and they really are not concerned about the people who are doing the work. Those are the people who are unfairly being hurt because of overall neglect of the corporations and the states, the commissions that oversee these operations. I think the responsibility is on them. Boom.
Boom.
Go, Tom.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
That's serious.
Very serious. And very fucked up. You know, I mean, there's a lot of work going on in the cannabis industry now, and you know,
I mean, there's people spending days upon days upon days with all of these plants.
Right.
And
we hear from
all
Wes
different
about
capacities.
pollen.
Yeah.
I mean, they wear full,
like a hazmat suit.
When they're doing pollen, fucking die.
They wear like a beekeeper suit and then a whole like respirator.
Yeah, that pollen will kill you.
Yeah.
You breathe in enough of it, so it's understandable, you know. So, well, 1 year anniversary, but we didn't find out about that for like a couple months later. Remember that when it really truly happened. So, anyway, rest in peace. Catholic high school teacher busted.
Smoking in the boys' room?
Smoking weed with the students in the boys' room.
Oh, with the kids? Oops.
A former Cathedral high school teacher faces 4 charges in Brown County District Court, Minnesota. Yeah.
Wow.
School responded promptly to the incident with the statement. New Ulm Area Catholic School President Sister Julie Brand said on January 19th, this person is no longer employed at the school. The Journal reports that the Zoom hearing on the matter is set for 8:30 a.m. on February 14th. Priest associated with the New Ulm Diocese dropped a dime and called the police on January 14th. Oh, we got a rat in the system. After a school administrator alerted him that the students had been smoking with their teacher. The supervising priest called the New Ulm police investigator, Jeff Honies. The Free Press identified one student was an adult and 3 others were minors. One of the students told police that Weible always provided the cannabis free of charge.
Oh, shoot.
Sounds a little creepy over there.
Yeah.
It's a high school fantasy to be smoking in the boys' room, but a nightmare for the parents and the teacher accused of contributing to minors. Police execute a search warrant, and along with the Renville Drug Task Force, agent photographed and collected evidence. Police recovered items including flour, wax, a grinder, and multiple colored bong.
Ooh.
Yes.
Bad teacher.
Yes. So
That was a dumb choice.
Very dumb choice.
It sounds like he did it more than once.
2 tree, maybe 4 or 5. Who the fuck knows? Sounds like a creepazoid to
Sounds
me,
like
though.
he's grooming those boys for something else.
Yep. And the birthday girl just came down to visit us.
Yuki!
She will be 1 tomorrow.
Our doggy is going to be 1 in the morning. You're going to be 1.
Yes.
Cute girl.
Mrs Weedman,
this
this is the end of the show.
I'm smoking some more.
You've been fucking killing
I'm just
that
going
thing.
to town on it tonight.
I got a little euphoric from that.
Yeah?
That third time the second time you lit it, but the third time I hit it, you like that? Kind of rhymed.
Yeah.
I started seeing little dots flowing across the
Whoa.
screen. I was
Yeah?
like, euphoria, baby. So, got anything else to say?
That's it. Everybody, have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Stay warm. If you live someplace hot, stay cool.
Yeah.
Lucky you. I'll just be up here freezing.
There you go. Hey, everybody out there in the world. Thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for supporting us. Thanks for just doing everything. We appreciate you out there. And be kind to one another, man. This world's fucked up. Fucked up. It is fucked up right now. And, man, we just need to fucking come together. Smoke some weed. Something. Because it's fucked up. That's all I got to say. So, I'll end it on that. As Paulie always says, smoke smart. Puff, puffing away.
Puff, puff, pass.